Hello, Dean Beckhorn. This is Salvador Nisha B. Beckhorn, I believe. This is Salvador Gonzalez Jaimes, and I am a deferred action for childhood arrivals. So, um, in in biology 310 with instructor Jeffrey Roberts, the reason why I'm filing a grievance petition form, a student grievance petition form, is because I didn't get the quality points I deserve for my lab reflections, or sorry, for my lab report. So in his syllabus, it's um it's 25% of our grade where he goes over sorry, it's 25% of our grade, our laboratory. So each week there would be one or two labs to complete. Each lab has its own information page. So there's a background information on the lab that we have to read. So going back to what I was saying, so our overall grade consists of three portions: lab reports, lab reflections, and lab discussion groups. So as the lab in laboratory reports, the lab information sheet with lab instructions and lab report page. I didn't have access to a printer. I'm pretty sure that ARC, the American River College Library, was closed during the summer. So back in June 16, 3 days after I got my grade, I'm a full time laborer. That's my skill. I labor. So there was a comment on my grade when instructors said the hypothesis is okay, but a little bit confusing on the structure. Hypothesis. So I just want to make sure that I understand what a hypothesis is. It's a possible explanation of an event. It's clear, testable, falsifiable. Hypothesis is a prediction for a single test. So apart from that, you have experiment, your data collection. You conduct the experiment, you collect data, which is quantitative data, have a control, evaluate results, make conclusions, and make a report. So um, my hypothesis was the higher in for the scientific lab method. This was module one. You can see here is chapter one. The higher an increase in price for gum, the longer the flavor and taste will last. So my independable was cost of gum. So what was getting measured? Chewing gum. So I believe the professor didn't give me full credit for that, for having the variables down. But in his lab comments, or in the comments after I submitted my lab write up for the scientific method, he says your hypothesis is overall okay, but a little confusing. Um, so the biggest thing is that you did not use the report form provided. So I got the questions from the lab report, the lab information, but again, I couldn't access a printer, so he doesn't have a grading rubric on what was going to get deducted points. So that's really frustrating as a student, especially during the summer, because during the summer there should be some type of lenience, especially for a deferred action for childhood arrivals. So cost of gum was not necessarily part of the original question, but you can tie it into how long the flavor lasts. You don't not need a control group with this type of experiment. So dependent variable is how long the flavor lasts. So that's time. Dependent variable is time. Independent variable is chewing gum, and more specifically, the cost of gum, since that is what your hypothesis is measuring against. So there is no experimental design, there is no data presented, and therefore you cannot draw a conclusion. So my experimental design was, uh, I have it here. So experiment, so control group, use as a comparison. So experiment group is an independent variable that you are testing. So that's the chewing gum. So as far as data and control group, it's zero. You're you have zero chewing gum. I believe that's what you're comparing. So experimental group and the variable least inexpensive gum to price your chewing gum. So in conclusion, the amount spent in chewing gum has the most longer lasting flavor and pricier gum. So I told instructor Jeffrey Roberts I got partial the independent variable down, which was chewing gum. I told him at least I deserve more than 0.75 out of 8. So um, he said, based on your hypothesis, the independent deemed variables are incorrect. And that's false. So independent would be the cost of gum. Oh, dependent variable would be length of the time the flavor lasts. Either way, that was not required part of your lab write-up. But it does, in the lab write-up, it does say, um, it states to list the variables. So let's see if I have it open. So you will need here in step 3 says you will need to write out detailed list of your variables to determine what you are going to evaluate and what you are going to control for and how you're going to accomplish both. So if that's not what I did, I'm not too sure if that's what I did, then I'm not too sure why. He says, I gave you points for starting your question, forming a hypothesis, and having partial conclusion. Those were parts of the assigned report. And having partial conclusion. So he also, so to me, a 0.75 out of 8 without a grading rubric and having these comments assigned for it, it's frustrating to get to the to know exactly what to work on. So that's one of the lab write-ups out of 8. Another lab write-up, he states that it was difficult to. He said, I cannot make sense of most of this. I think the entire introduction section is missing. There is a reason that I provide a report for you to use. So here's my work. I mean, a 1.5 out of 8. It's ridiculous. So this is DNA RNA lab. This is the introduction. I tried doing Cornell style lab introduction, DNA and RNA. So that's that's what I have. I mean, um, I again I don't have access to a printer, so it's summertime. There's only so much I can do during the summer. So a 5.5 out of 8. This was probably one of my highest grades with this lab write up. So he says, again, not using the form museum needs to free questions. So not really sure what you are talking about. So 1 and 2 is not answered. Question 4: the rock is abiotic component. The moss is not. So the rock is abiotic because a rock is not living. Once it's say a tree is biotic with moss because both things are living. So we went over that in the second appointment, which was in July 29th. And that's when I referred back to Module 1 and I spoke with the instructor, Jeffrey Roberts. And I told him, Jeffrey Roberts, what are you going off of? Because I'm at a 0.75 out of 8. He's like, okay, I gave you a point for your hypothesis. I'm like, no, that's 0.75. That's not equivalent to 1 point. He says, okay, I'll raise it up to a 1.25. So I'm just like, okay, in my head, I'm just like, okay, I have to go back and see all of my answers, which is fine if I had a grading rubric. But if there's no grading rubric and the instructor is using comments like this, I can't, I can't, I can't. It clearly states my answers. There's no. I think he did give me credit for those answers, but I cannot look past this. I have to get this passed. So the American River, the ecosystem is a freshwater environment. Excuse me. There are producers such as thornberries, where primary consumers such as squirrels may eat. So this is off the trophic levels in his lecture notes. So human dependence, humans depend greatly on this ecosystem. So this ecosystem scavenger hunt. I didn't include pictures, which cost me some points, deducted some points. I apologize for the noise in the background, but this is all. So my grades, again, going back to lab write-ups, I'm below a 50%, and all the lab write-ups were submitted. There's no missing work. That's including my lab discussion boards. I'm at a 27 out of 30 there, and weekly lab reflections, I'm at a 24 out of 24. So I did my best to try to submit all the work I could on time. And if I would have got a 7 out of 8 in my lab reports, then I could be at a 68, 69%. That would bump me up to a C. So this is my last year at a junior college. So this is my last course taking this is my this is my last course to transfer with an Associates of Science to CSUC or CSUS Sacramento State, which I plan to visit or I plan to enroll in next fall. So if I were to get a 80 out of 88 points, that would bring me up to a 69%, which is technically a C. So that's what I'm grieving about. Dean Nisha Beckhorn, is understanding that I was wronged for my quality of points. I could have gone more, but the instructor insisted I need to follow up. But I told him, hey, instructor, I'm gonna need a grading rubric. I'm not like these other students that um, that have their time managed. I'm a full time student. I'm a deferred action for childhood arrivals. There needs to be some type of grading rubric for me in order to see what the white American's saying. So I hope you take that into consideration. I don't mean to offend anyone, and if it does offend people, then there's not much I can do. But just let you know, hey, you know what? I try to do my best in college without cheating, even though I did cheat in quizzes. But other than that, I mean, it's summertime. Students supposed to be enjoying their summer. Like I said, right now. I just got some of my books ordered from a higher division college, so I can't. I have to. I'm taking criminal justice courses, 4 criminal justice courses, or legal courses as that combine in with my CJ courses. So I have to be prepared. I can't look back on this